Moreover, Job continued his parable and said. Now I have to admit, I was in my study and kind of chuckled when I read that verse. And I kind of had you folks in mind. Moreover, Brother Sam continued his parable and said. It's like Job will not. I understand this is Holy Ghost inspiration, but he just keeps going over and going over and going over the trouble in his life and responding. Look at Brother Sam. We're going to read it, but I'm just going to tell you how you can quit having 42 chapters in your book. Don't allow the devil to draw you in to a continual opportunity to voice your displeasure with your situation and with God. You don't have to respond to everyone, and you certainly don't have to respond to the devil. We wouldn't even be reading this if he wasn't responding to Bildad, Eliphaz, and Zophar. Now, this is all Bible. It's Holy Ghost. I get that. I'm simply making an application. Our parables continue. Our whining continues. Our self-righteousness continues because all of us have to have the last word. What's funny, he doesn't even get the last word. Elihu and God does. There's another one after these three, and then God. I will want you to notice, though I don't want to say it and spoil too much, but we will get to that one verse where it says, and the words of Job are ended. You know when that happens? That happens when God begins to speak. Oh, that I were as in months past, as in the days when God preserved me, when His candle shined upon my head, and when by His light I walked through darkness, as I was in the days of my youth, when the secret of God was upon my tabernacle, when the Almighty was yet with me, when my children were about me, when I washed my steps with butter, and the rock poured me out rivers of oil. That word, that phrase, river of oil, is used in the Bible. Oil, it's a picture of the Holy Spirit, yes, but it's also a picture of prosperity and blessing. And he's here in these 6 verses just begging, just reflecting on the former days of God's blessings. He's reminiscing. When I went out to the gate through the city, when I prepared my seat in the street, the young men saw me and hid themselves, and the aged arose and stood up. He's talking about a position of authority and influence. You wouldn't know that unless God told him to say that. We know from chapter 1 he was a perfect and an upright man, one that feared God and eschewed evil. We do know from chapter 1 he was the richest man and the greatest man in the East. And we know from chapter 29 that he had positions of authority and influence. The young men saw me and hid themselves. It's not that they were afraid he would abuse them. It's not that they were afraid he would hurt them. It's not that they were afraid of him in a physical sense, but they just really were in awe of his greatness and his influence. They just removed themselves from the potential of being crossways or in certain sorts, and Job pointing that out. The aged arose and stood up. Man of influence. The princes refrained talking, laid their hand on their mouth. Their nobles held their peace, and their tongue cleaved to the roof of their mouth. He's talking about nobility and authority would stop talking. And look in verse 11, when the ear heard me, they would listen to Job. They would respect him. Then it blessed me. Now be honest in the house of God, young or old. Doesn't it bless you when someone listens to what you have to say? and not only listens to what you have to say, they adhere to what they just heard. We're all that way. It's a blessing when you have a verbal influence on somebody. It's not that you're trying to necessarily, some are, but it's not that you're necessarily trying to control. You're trying to influence. You're trying to help. The eye saw me. It gave witness to me. They saw Job. They heard Job. They respected Job. Because I delivered the poor that cried, and the fatherless, and him that had none to help. The blessing of him that was ready to perish came upon me, and I caused the widow's heart to sing for joy. He helped. He cared for the needy. He was a support to the widow. He was strength to the orphan. He was a comfort and a help. He was there to meet the needs of those. He was not the richest and the greatest man, hoarding it unto himself. The Bible says that, if you noticed what it said, came upon me. It fell on my shoulders, the great responsibility. God had blessed me. This is what he thought to be a blessing. And he's reminiscing on this. He's reflecting on this. I put on righteousness, and it clothed me. My judgment was as a robe and a diadem. He's not saying he's nobility, and he's not saying that he was kingly. What he's saying is his life was ordered by character and righteousness. For example, do we not have a New Testament thought concerning this? Put on the new man. Put off the old man. Put on the new garment. Put off the old garment. His life was ordered by character and right, clean, holy living. He's not saying he was above sin. He's not saying he was perfect. He's saying I lived my life in a godly fashion. And God backed that up. There's a perfect and an upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil. That was not the devil's assessment of Job. That was not the assessment of Job's wife. That's not the testimony of his children. And that's not the testimony of these people in chapter 29 that heard him and saw him. That's what God said. I wanted to live right. Notice as he continues, I was eyes to the blind and feet to the lame, the physically impaired. He was an assistance to them. I was a father to the poor. And the cause which I knew not, I searched out. He said, I took it upon myself to investigate and find who needed help and what they needed. Even then, Job's confessing the obvious. There are just some people that it could be pride or embarrassment. They just don't want to let their needs be known. Job said, you're not doing that to me. I won't embarrass you, and I won't laugh at you, and I won't make a scene, but I'll find out who it is and what you need, and I'll take care of it. And it'll be between me, you, and God, because I want to help you. That's how Job was. Are you not seeing Job walk down memory lane? You're getting a little bit of a better understanding of what one verse tried to say. A perfect and an upright man, one that feared God and eschewed evil. This was the kind of man I hope to be. It's the kind of man I would hope you would want to marry, lady. It's the kind of man I think I want to be to pastor. It ought to be the kind of Sunday school teacher. And by the way, you don't have to be a man. His characteristics ought to be man, woman, teen, child. You ought to see this man as an example of Christianity. Does not the Bible say that pure religion and undefiled is to care for the widows and the orphans? To help those in need? He continues, I break the jaws of the wicked and pluck the spoil out of his teeth. You tried to pull one over on Widow Smith? I'm going to take care of Widow Smith. You're going to give it back to her? You're going to give it back to her with a smile? Or are you going to give it back to her with a broken jaw, but you're giving it back to her? I'm not reading between the manly lines here. That's what he says, Brother Roger. I break the jaws of the wicked. He didn't go out to try to be a bully. He said, you will not mistreat and abuse people. You'll not rob them blind. You'll not cheat them at the store. You're not taking Widow Smith and putting your thumb when she's trying to get a little bit of meat for her family and weighing that down and overcharging her. He said, I went back and I plucked it out of their teeth and gave it back to them. He's the kind of friend you wanted to have. He's looking out for people. Then I said, 17 verses down memory lane. And he said, I shall die in my nest, and I shall multiply my days as the sand. So now we're going from the past to the future. My root was spread out by the waters, and the dew lay all night upon my branch. He's on death's door. My glory was fresh in me, and my bow was renewed. My bow was renewed in my hand. Unto me gave ear, and waited, and kept silence at my counsel. He's talking about the strength of his youth, and the bow of combat was in his hand, and he was ready to help, and he was there in time of need. Men gave ear, and they waited, and they wanted his counsel. After my words they spake not again. I was able to give them what they needed in that moment, and they went with it. My speech dropped upon them. Just dropped upon them. They waited for me as for the rain. They opened their mouth wide as for the latter rain. If I laughed on them, they believed it not. They knew the difference between phony Job and real Job. They knew he wasn't a phony and he wasn't a fake. The light of my countenance they cast not down. It was just a pleasure to be around Job. Have you ever been around someone like that? I wish you had. The first one that comes to my mind is Richard Post. A nut. The oddest man you would ever meet. The only man I knew could make you mad, and you had a fist in one hand and you were hugging him with the other. Just one of those. Oh, you loved him. But he just a pleasure to be around him. I miss him so much. I've met other people like that. Brother Sam Davison is like that to me. Brother George, just a pleasure to be around. I chose out their way and sat chief and dwelt as a king in the army and as one that comforted the mourners. Now listen, you would say, aha, see, you're trying to convince us Job didn't have any nobility and he wasn't haughty. He just said he chose and he wanted to sit as a king, not to rule and reign, but to shepherd. You may not believe this. I like the fact that it says Sam Robinson, pastor. Not because I have a group of people to control, but I have a group of sheep I get to shepherd. That's what he's saying. He said, as one that comforteth the mourners. I want to sit as a king with the responsibility and privilege of not looking on my own estate, my own cares, and my own burdens, but helping those that sit underneath me. But, as he reflects on his influential past, we now have that word but. Conjunction. But. In other words, we got to get from then to now. Here's where we're at now. But now they that are younger than I have me in derision, whose fathers I would have disdained to have set with dogs the dogs of my flock. He said, the lowest of society is laughing at me, and they weren't even worthy to sit with my dogs. That's how low I've gotten. He's gone from being respected to reviled. Yea, whereto might the strength of their hands profit me, and whom old age was perished? They had nothing to offer. They're broke. They're laughing at me because I am now as one of them. Yea, I'm not as one of them. I'm now beneath them. I just think we need a little humor right here. I can tell by looking. This is a sad thing. Job's trying to say, you know why we went to Kentucky Fried Chicken? To lick other people's fingers. That's what he's saying. I wouldn't even give you a chicken leg until I gave it to my dog. Now I'm licking your finger. That's how broke I am. It's how I feel in my heart. For want and famine, they were solitary, fleeing into the wilderness in former time, desolate and wasted, who cut up mallows by the bushes. That's a salty marsh plant. Nothing. Juniper roots for their meat. They were driven forth from among men. They cried after them as after a thief, the beggar, the lowly, the outcast, the scum of society is in better straits than I am. He said to dwell in the cliffs of the valleys, in the caves of the earth, and in the rocks, and among the bushes. They brayed under the nettles. They were gathered together. They were children of fools, yea, children of base men. They were viler than the earth. And now I am their song. Yea, I am their byword. They abhor me. They flee far from me and spare not to spit in my face. I lost my place. Give me a minute. Verse 11, see? Because he hath loosed my cord. Why is the outcast of society spitting on me? Why am I lower than the lowly? Oh, it's God's fault. Didn't you hear him just say that? Look in verse 12 or verse 11. Because he hath loosed my cord and afflicted me. They have also let loose the bridle before me. They're just unbridled. There's just no end to their scoffing and reviling. They are unharnessed. There's no end to it. Upon my right hand rise the youth. They push away my feet. They raise up against me the ways of their destruction. They mar my path. They set forward my calamity. They have no helper. They're playing tricks on them. Here comes old brother Job. Lay a banana peel in the doorway. Unscrew the leg to the chair so he falls over. When I was at Pensacola, Brother Jason did this too. He just won't admit it. But you played tricks on those in the dish room. Don't tell me you didn't. I can tell by the laughter he did. You know, you turn the ketchup upside down and take the lid off and put it on top, and it looks like the ketchup, and you lift it, all the ketchup comes out. Or you take sugar and water and condiments and glue your cup to the tray because it was a wash system of conveyor belt, and you just grab cups and you grab silverware, and then you grab it and the whole tray comes and it backs up. It's a trick. It's a joke. They're laughing. They're playing jokes on Job now. He's a byword. Yeah, you know what I did to Sam the other day? I sure Jobed him. That's what they're doing. A man of influence. A man that society waited as for the latter rain just for Job to say something that would bring wisdom into their heart and mind and soul. They came upon me as a wide breaking in of the waters. In the desolation, they rolled themselves upon me. The wide breaking of the waters gives you the idea of a wave. You ever go to the beach or to the coast, wade out in the water, and you can see a wide spot where it's just rolling up and it's just rolling in and it's waving up and it crashes upon you with thunderous might and strength. I used to, what we call, dive into the waves when I was at Pensacola, back when I was young and stupid. And so you would wade out and you would look for that wave, and you would wait till just the right moment, and you would jump head first into that thing so you could come out on the other side. It never happened to me one time. I was tumbled about like I was in a washing machine or a dryer and thrown out 30 yards down the Gulf. The power of it. It's what they're doing to me. They just come right upon me. Terrors are turned upon me. They pursue my soul as the wind. My welfare passeth away as a cloud. Now let me ask you a question. Have you ever been to that place in your life where you've gone from such a high to such a low that now your mind is against you, your emotions are against you, terror has overtaken you? My welfare passeth away as a cloud, a dim future, a bleak outlook. My soul is poured out upon me. The days of affliction have taken hold upon me. What he's trying to say is, and just being honest, and I think God's going to use the sermon to help some, not only in here, but that are watching, he's finally admitting, although it's inaccurate, but he believes in his heart that affliction has taken hold upon me. That's it. The cancer, the leukemia, the age, the this, the that has settled into permanency, and it may not be tomorrow, but it's just a little bit down the road, and my affliction will take me. I'm now in a prison of affliction, and the key has been lost. My bones are pierced in me. In the night season, my sinews take no rest. My wife knows when I'm sick. And generally, I'll tell you how you can know if Brother Sam is sick. Really. I cannot stop moving. She knew one time when I was getting pretty sick, and I'll just sit there and my leg will shake, or my body will, just like you do. Your bones, there's no sleep. You ache. The joints hurt. There's no rest. Your body's afflicted. Your body's sick. Your body's diseased. And sleep fails. By great force of my disease is my garment changed. It bindeth me about as the collar of my coat. He's now saying the disease. And what does he have? He has boils from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet. And what's he doing with the boils? He's breaking them open and cutting them off with pieces of pottery. And so afflicted is he, and so vile is he, and so diseased is he, that his flesh is coming off in his garment. Have you ever seen someone that's had a surgery or a disease and you just have to keep, what do they say? Change the dressing. Change the clothing. A filthy garment. He hath cast me into the mire, and I am become like dust and ashes. What's that a reference to, Brother Sam? From dust we were created, to dust will return. He's simply saying, you may as well bury me now. and let the worms destroy this body. He said, I know my Redeemer liveth, and I'll see him on the latter day. But he said, that'll happen after worms destroy this body. Let the decomposition begin. Bury me already. Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever just felt, leave me alone and let me die? I cry unto thee through all of this, he says. I cry unto thee. Thou dost not hear me. I stand up, and thou regardest me not. Thou art become cruel to me. With thy strong hand thou opposest thyself against me. Thou liftest me up to the wind. Thou causest me to ride upon it, and dissolvest my substance. The dandelions are popping up. Brother Tony, didn't I just mow? I just mowed. Thank you, I know. I'm ticked off about it. And I go outside of the church here, and there's dandelions, the nerve. But I remember when I was a child, a kid, and I just thought it was great to pick up a dandelion, and what? And it all flew everywhere and made my mother sick and put her in bed and gave her asthma. I didn't know, of course, about pollen and all of that and allergies. My mother had health problems and asthma, and I walked up, I still remember this, we were in Glen Burnie, Maryland, and they were springtime and they're growing up, and I said, Mom, I have something really neat, you want to see it? Blew it in her face, and she's sick for 3 weeks. Pollen and all, but it was just neat to watch it. You ever held it up to the wind and the wind comes by? That's what he's saying. I'm just a dandelion to you. You are the God of heaven. Your hand spans the universe, and you've picked little Job up, and you've held him to the wind, and it's blown my age and my health and my strength away. You're opposing me. He's saying that all of this affliction is of God. It's not of God. God's allowing it. God's not afflicting him. God's allowing it. He doesn't understand that. He's just talking. Doesn't that remind you, out of the bitterness of his heart, he said in Job 7:11, I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. I know thou will bring me to death, and to the house appointed for all living. What he's trying to say is, you're going to put me in the grave. And I know you're going to put everyone in the grave. He's trying to be spiritual about it. But you're pushing me. You're digging me an early grave. I was an influence. I was a help. Those who had no children, I took care of, and yet you take my children. Now wait a minute, it's preaching time. I'm the one giving my body to the church, and you're taking my health. I'm the one that's tithed and invested and given above and beyond, and you're pinching me. I'm the one that's done this. I'm the one that's done that. I'm the one that's had eyesight to look after the poor, and now I'm blind. And I'm the one that had ears of comfort to listen as people had needs, and now you've taken my hearing, and now you've made my body old, and you've taken that influence. You're pushing me into an early grave. Howbeit, he will not stretch out his hand to the grave, though they cry in his destruction. You know what that means? He's not going to cover it. He's not going to keep the sand from falling in the hole. He's not going to keep me from being lowered into it. He's trying to say, Brother Tim, just like that, God could end all of this. But he's not going to. He's not going to put a hold on the grave. He's not going to, Brother Roger, put a lid on the situation. Right now, he could end all of it, but he doesn't want to do that. He's not going to do that. He wants to push me in. He doesn't want to keep me out. Did not I weep for him that was in trouble? Where are my friends? Where is my comfort? Where is my support? Now, I told you I had no notes. It's preaching time. If you're trying to be a blessing to somebody expecting the motive to get it in return, then quit helping people. Quit. You're a phony and a fake. I'll help you, but you help me. No, I'll help you, whether or not you ever help me. I'll pay your bill, you pay mine. No, you pay it if God lays it, whether or not they ever repay it or even touch yours. I'm telling you, we have this backward mentality of, I'll do as long as I get back. You're a fraud and a phony. Jesus went about doing good to people that would spit on him and crucify him and reject him and walk away, and only 1 out of 10 would even thank him for what he's done. Was not my soul grieved for the poor? Where's my offering? No one's taking a love offering for me. No one's taken me to Walmart and bought me groceries. Preaching time. Just the good old days when I looked for good, then evil came unto me. When I waited for light, there came darkness. Pessimism has settled in. My bowels boiled. Rested not. I think you have a good idea of what that means. The days of affliction prevented me. He's trying to say, my body and the waste of my body just pours out because I don't even have the strength to prevent it. If I'm going to throw up, I'm going to throw up. If I'm going to mess, I'm going to mess. If I'm going to fall, I'm going to fall. I don't even have the strength. My body, the affliction, I have no strength to stop the waste and the filth that comes out of this body. The body's just doing what it wants to do now. That's what he's saying. And it's your fault, God. Let me remind you of that. Notice this. I went mourning without the sun. And notice that's not mourning as in mourning, that's sad, depressed, crying. I went mourning without the sun. I stood up and I cried in the congregation. He's talking about public crying. He's talking about I just wanted to be helped. I wanted to be heard. Now I want everyone to look at Brother Sam. Preaching time. I don't care what you know about somebody. I don't care what you know or what you think you know. He that knows that there's the cry of the poor and he closes up to it, God will close up your cry. And we've helped them before. You better do it again and leave it in God's hands. Here they go, standing up in a congregation, weeping and wailing. Just be glad it's not you that has to do that. I stood, I wept. These people came to me as sheep would come to a shepherd, as subjects would come to a king, and I sought them out by night. I'm the one that put food on their doorstep and no one knew who it was, and I wanted it that way, and I tended and I educated the orphan and I helped the widow, and I didn't do it so that you would do it back, but at least could you try to help me? And again, he's not even really directing that to the congregation like any of us do. We're passive-aggressive toward God. Well, I'm sick. I'm broke. And what you're saying to the congregation is, God's failed me. So you're going to have to do what God won't do for me. That's what Job's saying. I cried. I got no help from Eliphaz. I get no help from Bildad. I get no help from Zophar. I am a brother to dragons. He's talking about the lizards and the snakes. I'm no better than serpents that crawl on the ground. I'm a companion to the owl. The owl is just a bird that sits and whines and hoots. No better than they. These dirty birds, these whiny birds. My skin is black. Upon me, that's bruised. My bones are burned with heat. That's a fever. I was sick a few weeks ago, and I texted Miss Vicki. My wife was not here, and so I was left to take care of myself in the midst of my calamity and affliction, weariness of my flesh and mind. So I texted Miss Vicki, and I said, I don't know if we have a thermometer, and I don't know how to use it, but what are some indicators you might have a fever? I said, if you've got heat behind your eyes, if you're profusely sweating. She said, yeah, those are indicators. I said, well, I feel like my eyeballs are burning out of my head. She said, get to urgent care. You got a fever. And I found where we had a thermometer. I even texted my wife. I said, how do you use this thing? She said, you stick it in your mouth. Clean it and stick it in your mouth. And so I did, and I held it there, and you count to 60. You're supposed to leave it in there for a minute. And it said 101. I was close, gang. It was close. It's by the grace of God you have a preacher. I mean, it was rough. It was tough. And I get in that truck, Brother Tony, thank you for the hearse. I mean, the truck that you allowed me to drive. And I drove that thing all the way to urgent care. And I drove like this. Oh, dear God. Any sins in my life, I readily confess. And Miss Debbie needed me, or something. I texted her, and I said, now tell your family, Christopher and Brad, I love them. And it's been so wonderful to pastor. And in the great fellowship beyond, I look forward to that great reunion in the skies. And then what did I say? Something like this. Oh, wait, whoa. It's getting foggy. It's getting dark. And I just put ... And I get in there, and it's 102. Oh, the steam's rolling out of the ears. This right here, that's ashes. Notice I've been a little grayed in the last couple. It's ashes. My hair singed. And I go in there, and the man says, well, you're pretty sick. You have some family you want to... No, he didn't say that. And so there had been some strep throat. This is around the revival time. And they tested me for strep throat, and it was negative. They tested me for all these influenzas, and it's negative. And he said this. He said, now, let's have the honest virus talk. You could have the COVID, the virus. Need to maybe test you, but I don't think that's what you have. I think you have a head cold. And I want you to take some Tylenol, and by Monday, we'll test you if you're not feeling better. It was actually kind of nice, Brother Roger, to run into a doctor that didn't shove me in the COVID ward. He said, okay, all right, it may be, but... So he sent me home, and I drove all the way back. And Miss Vicki is so nasty and mean. I said, can I have ice cream? And she said, no. I said, thanks a whole lot. I even tried to come in her back door, and she said, don't even try it. I said, fine. So I found 50-50. She'll forgive me later. And I went home to die. And I sit down in the easy chair, and Trixie jumps up, lays her head on my lap. Oh, you've been a great master. You've been a great owner. And I took that Tylenol. Actually, that's a lie, isn't it? There was no Trixie because Ben and Charlotte had Trixie. I'm sorry that I stole your thunder. They were watching her so I could die in the comfort. And I go to bed. and I wake up well. I made a full recovery. I don't know how. It's by the grace of God that I made a full recovery. You said, Brother Sam, you're making light. No, I'm not making light. I'm trying to show you that sickness comes and sickness goes, and wealth comes and wealth goes, and sanity comes and it goes, but God's always there. And my fever broke. My harp also was turned to mourning. And my organ, and that's not your physical organs, apparently he used to be a musician. You say, how do you know? Well, he just said, I played a harp and an organ. He played an organ, Miss Debbie. He played a harp. My organ into the voice of them that weep. So he went from playing a joyous organ like Miss Debbie does for us. And she'll play along with the hymns. And, you know, every once in a while you watch a ball game. Da-da-da-da-da-da, nice, melodious. You go to Wrigley Field, it'll play some of the sweetest music this side of heaven. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. I don't want to say, buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I ever get back to the World Series. Root for the Cubbies if they don't win. It's typical, but a shame. Or it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out, pretty much, at the old ball game. And so now Job's organ is, da-na-na-na-na. I hate death music with it. I just do. I just cannot handle these organs that sound like death all the time. And that's what that's all my music is nothing but sorrow and sad. Well, we read all of that to say one thing. Go back to verse 5 of chapter 29 and let's fix something here and go home. When the Almighty was yet with me. All of these verses, he has just eliminated the fact that God was not with him, but is still with him. I had influence when God was with me. Yeah, you have it when he's... You still have him when you don't have influence. I had God, and a sure way of knowing I had God is I was healthy. Yeah, you have him when you're sick too. I was taking care of other people's children, and now mine are gone. You had God with kids, and he's still your God when you bury him. I had all the money to take care of the poor, to take care of the widows, and I had the money to educate those that had need. And yes, you still have God when you don't have 2 pennies to rub together. I had God in that beautiful place where my wife gave birth to our children, and you have God in the funeral home when you bury that child you brought into the world. So quit saying when and start saying he is. Don't you see Job's problem? It's your fault, God. Let's just talk about this for a minute. Let me just get this off my chest. Let me complain in the bitterness of my soul. I can tell you why this has happened. I can tell you what's going on. You have abandoned me. No, he has not. Get that out of your head. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He'll never leave you. He'll never forsake you. He's with you in wealth. He's with you in sickness. He's with you he's with you in poverty. He's with you in health. He's with you in sickness. He's with you in birth. He's with you in death. Some of us in this auditorium and on live stream need to quit whining and acting like God's abandoned us. With no, friend. He's never been closer to us than when we go through the valley of the shadow of death. He's available. He's attentive. He's there. He's able. He's capable. And all the devil is doing to Job is playing with his mind. It is your battlefield. Now you listen to Brother Sam. The Spirit sustains you. You can handle sick body when you turn that over to the Lord, but you can't handle sick body and sick mind. And when you start saying, oh, I remember when, quit saying when. Start saying He is. When God? No, He is. When? No. He is just as much a part of you and interested in you and helping you right now in this back half of the book as He was in that first chapter. You know what the problem with modern day Christianity is? We have so grown bitter and unhappy, listen to me, with where we're at, that we've lost sight of who He is. And so our happiness of who our friend is now swallowed up in the reality of our circumstance. And when your eyes start looking on the difficulties of life, you tend to forget you have a friend sticking closer than a brother. You're losing the forest for the trees. What are you trying to say, Brother Sam? I need some encouragement. Good, quit. Quit saying when and start saying He is. He is with me. He is God. He is good. And though worms destroy this body, yet in my flesh I shall see God. And quit trying to speak, which is what is about to happen here in just a matter of chapters. Chapter 38 is when God shows up and starts to answer Job. Don't speak for God. Quit saying He's afflicting you when He may just be allowing it. Quit blaming God. Start believing God. And quit dismissing God and start depending on God. Pull out of your vocabulary when. Now, I think you can do this and not at all harm the Bible. Because God will know your heart. I would take an X, not because the word when doesn't belong there. I'm not correcting the King James. Are we okay? And put an X through it where you can still see the word because it's inspired, and maybe circle for your own heart, He is. It's not when He was with me. He still is my shepherd, and He still is with me. Heads are bowed, eyes are closed. I don't know where you're at tonight. Again, no particular notes. I read these chapters and got to that verse, and I knew it was the thought for the hour. When? Let me tell you what life used to be like. When? No, He's still the same yesterday and today and forever. So why don't you give God your burden? Why don't you rip when out of your vocabulary? Quit letting the devil play with your mind. Start finding hope and help in your shepherd and in your friend. Now, Lord, I've preached the best I could. Give us a response according to your will. In Jesus' name. Stand with Brother Jason. Follow him as he conducts the invitation.
485. Have thine own
Let him have his way tonight.
Lord.
What's on your heart?
Have thine own way.
Put it at the cross.
Thou art the potter, I am the clay.
Mold me and make me.
Mold me and make me after thy will, while I am waiting, yielded and still. Have thine own way. Master, today, whiter than snow, Lord, wash me just now, as in thy presence humbly I bow.
One more verse, Brother Jason. We'll be done.
Have thine own way,
When,
Lord,
as the Almighty
have
was with
thine
me,
own
He's still with you.
way, wounded and weary, help me, I pray. Power, all power, surely is thine. Touch me and heal me, Savior divine.
When, as yet he was. That's a lie of the devil. I'll tell you who's not with you, him. I'll tell you who doesn't care, the devil. I tell you who wants you to die and lose everything, that's the devil. But God's never been more with you than he is right now. Be seated. Let's close with our announcements real quick. Brother Ben, come up. There's been just a slight adjustment with our young people, and still having an activity, but Brother Ben wants to let the parents and the teenagers know about the new updated teen activity this Saturday.
Just a slight change. We heard about this recreational area and hiking grounds in Illinois, about an hour and a half away. So we're going to be meeting here at the church at 8:30. It's called the Garden of the Gods Recreational Park and everything. Some of the boys have already been there before, but we're going to be taking them out there and doing some cooking and eating and hiking and all kinds of other things and stuff like that. So we're going to have a lot of fun. And also about the walkathon, if I can really quickly insert that. We're also doing an incentive for any adult or participant of the walkathon that wants to. Anyone that makes over $250, we're going to be doing a bonus activity sometime after camp and taking a trip to Kings Island, which is a amusement park, roller coasters and everything, so like that. It'll be a lot of fun. So anybody that wants to be a participant of that, the incentive is if you can make over $250 in your walkathon fundraising, and all the fundraising will go to the youth group and teen activities and stuff like that. So we appreciate your help, and we're excited for it. So thank you.
Thank you, Ben. And you'll notice that God's growing the youth group by especially way of bus kids and bus teens, and they need help getting to camp and have these activities. And so I appreciate these teenagers of our church, and then of course the care that Ben and Miss Charlotte have for those that don't have. So I appreciate that. Don't forget about Hope. Don't forget about that this Friday at 7 o'clock, those that are able and interested in that. The teen activity is Saturday. And then don't forget about our resurrection offering, and that is on the 25th of April, $6,500. That's a big amount. We have a big God, and that's for our sound system. And so it's phase one. We really, our back is to the wall with this. We are on borrowed time. And I know that may sound melodramatic, but it's not. The speakers you see here sound funny because they have no highs to them. That they're shot, they're gone. You hear that? That's not a microphone. Did you all just hear that? That's the speaker going. And so it's going to, no matter how high the quality at present the microphone could be. I'm wearing, you all helped raise it, I'm wearing $1,500 worth of microphone, and it still does that. And so please be prepared for that offering. Now I'm going to do something off the cuff because I feel the Lord would be in it. I'm going to ask, don't you appreciate, and this has been brought to me, and I feel I should probably take a better lead in it. I appreciate what Donna and Betty do with our meals. Do you appreciate that? But there's no refrigerator, and that is a big deal. We need to get these speakers done, but we also need to get a refrigerator. So I'm going to do something in this church that I have never done before. We're going to raise the money possibly tonight. My wife and I, now you may not have it now, but let's say by next Sunday, okay, we will give $100. How much do one of these fridges cost? What do we need?
Well, it depends on what we end up with. Miss Betty had a couple of options that are potentially a huge blessing, but if we were to just outright purchase one, it would be about $2,500
$2,500.
for a decent, full-size.
By decent, you mean Cadillac or?
No, definitely not Cadillac. Cadillac would be like in the 5 to 6 range. This is for an industrial-sized fridge that will give us the space to put full trays in, to have the space that we need for
Okay,
what we do.
all right, that's fine. Brother Jason, there's a pen in that drawer. There's a pen, and people that are watching can do this as well. Are we still on? All right. There's a pen, and get that old service schedule or something, and I want you to write. You say, Brother Sam, it's embarrassing. Well, don't get embarrassed. And Brother Sam, I don't have it. Then don't give. This is not a pressure, but so put 100. Someone else going to give 100? There's one. We just raised. Who else? Tim, Vince, and Brother Frank. So don't get ahead. 1, 2. There's another 3. Okay. What are we up to? $500. Who else? Ben? Brother Ben. We're up to 6. Have you ever seen an offering like this before? Brother Roger, 7. Brother Arnold, 8. 500. Add 5. That.
I'm at 1,000.
It's my fault. I asked the deaf man to help. All right.
I'm at 1,000.
All right, so stop at 1,000. Hey, there you go. Listen to Brooke. She knows what she's saying. All right, we're at 1,200. Now, if you've already raised your hand, don't. $5 for Miss Snyder. She loves the meals. All right, so what are we up to? Now, really, you can go online and give to it, and or you just buy. That gives us a week to shop, and we'll get this fridge and be. All right, so we're up to what? 17. Oh, we're close, Miss. Wonderful. All right, so this will be if you can give it tonight or put it online, do so. Brother Dale, 200. We're at 19. All right, we're at 19. Anybody else? Don't be embarrassed. Miss Katie, they'll do 100. All right, we're at $2,000. 50. Wonderful. 50 from Miss Pam. Brother Joe, 100. All right, Brother Joe. Now that's another 100. We're at what? 2150. All right. Anybody else? And don't be embarrassed, and don't go out of here saying I didn't give nothing. Don't feel bad, for real, and don't make other people. It's just one of those things. We just need to raise the money, and I appreciate those that have come to me, and I want to take a better lead on this. So anybody else have a contribution? My OCD is going nuts now. Are there $5, $10? Is there 225s? When from us or you? I know, I'm teasing. Her fund money. She said 500. Oh, was that? Oh, she said 50. I'm sorry. That's not coming out of my birthday money, is it? Oh, is it? And Chris, good night. All right, what are we at? 22. All right, that's close. And is that good, Betty? You think we should be around in there? All right. Hey, and whatever comes in, then we'll use in that kitchen. All right. Nod your head, church, if you're okay with that. I know it's a lot. We'll do something, or we need another fridge. The one in the pantry is going to peter out pretty soon too. All right, so that's very generous of you. Don't forget the resurrection offering. So you're asking a lot. Just do what you can. This is the way ministry works. And you lend unto the Lord, and He'll give it back to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. And by the way, it's not always money. Brother Frank and these workers, Brother Tim, Brother Ben, Miss Katie, and brought in, was it close to 40, 35, 30, something like that? The bus is going up. And not just children, adults. Brother Ben's co-worker's been saved and in church and wanting to grow. And so thank you so much for that. All right, there you go. Thank you. If you'll give that just to your mom or put it in the offering, and we'll make accounting of it. And then we'll just follow Miss Betty and see how that goes. See, there's joy. That's cheerful giving. That really is. It's cheerful giving. And so thank you. And if you weren't able to, we do not feel bad about that. It's a spur-of-the-moment thing. I know you do what you can when you can. And so thank you for that. All right, all the announcements have been given. The message has been preached. And are there any music groups that we need to tend to? All right, if you're in a music group called by Miss Sharon or Miss Debbie, then you need to get involved in that. Otherwise, we'll see you Wednesday. Now, Lord, bless our week. Thank you for the generosity of these folks. Thank you for what you're doing in our church. Meet the needs we have over and abundant. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, I love you.